I'm starting to work on the top now. I have gone and flattened the bottom of these two top planks on my jointer, and now I'm going to plane the top surface nice and smooth. I've made some lines across here so that I know that I've completely flattened the top, and once I'm done with that, then I'll go ahead and use the bottom to trim off some to get the right thickness. To be butt joining the two pieces of Bookmatched big leaf maple for the top, and so in order to make sure that the top is nice and flat, I'm going to first joint the glue edge on the jointer, but I'm also going to joint such that one piece of the top has its face this way and the other piece has its face that way. That way, if there's any variation in the fence from a 90-degree angle, that will be made up by jointing in the two opposite directions, and I'll end up with a nice flat surface. I've got the edges jointed almost where I want them to match up, but I'd like the center of the board to be just a hair more open than at the ends, so that when I clamp, we'll squeeze together good, and if the ends happen to dry out a little more, they won't have such a tendency to open. So I'm using a jack plane. I've got a plane iron in here that's ground to 50 degrees, which is a very steep angle. Good to make sure that a wavy grain like we have in the big leaf maple, this quilted figure, doesn't tear out. We'll just take a little bit of a swipe off the center. See how nicely that comes out? Now I'm going to use 6 dominoes along the length of this butt joint between the two boards for the top. I'll be using these 8 by 50 millimeter dominoes. I'm not doing that so much for strength, because a good butt joint glued together is about as strong as you're going to get for a glue joint. But I am doing it to register the two pieces of the top in the vertical direction, so that as the seasons change and the wood tries to move, that glue joint will stay registered vertically and limit, if not totally eliminate, any a little difference in height that you might see summer to winter. By having these 6 dominoes in there, that will help give some rigidity to the joint. See how that would fit in there. And here's the top all glued up, clamped. It's going to sit like this overnight. I used Unibond 800 glue for this. You may recall that from an earlier episode when I was making the bent stretchers. It's a very stiff glue. It should prevent any creep between the 2 pieces of this joint, so you'll never feel that little tiny ridge. Here's a piece of Unibond that I've saved from an old job. I let it dry in the bottom of my little containers here. It gets hard, and I'll just break it. You can see how brittle. See, this stuff breaks just like peanut brittle. It's very stiff. It doesn't have any plasticity to it. And you can use different color catalysts. This is the medium color catalyst. For this particular glue up, I used the light color catalyst, and you can see it in the bottom of my mixing container. It's very light, so that the sapwood that is on this joint, and you'll see it later in later videos, is very light in color, and you won't be able to see the glue line. I've got the 2 pieces of the top glued together, and now I'm going to cut the curve along the front. I used the form that I had used to make the stretchers on the leg assembly to give me as a guide for making this curve. And now I'm going to use jigsaw instead of the bandsaw. This piece is just too large for me to hold on the bandsaw. I'll use a jigsaw to make this cut. Tool that doesn't get a whole lot of use in my shop. It's called the shaper. I'm going to use it to cut an under bevel on the top. I've mounted a 60-degree cutter in the shaper, and I'm going to take a light 60-degree cut and see how that angle looks, and if that doesn't look right, then I can modify the angle. Now, I've got the guard up out of the way, but the guard comes down, fits like this, so you can't get your fingers near the cutter, and it also has a tendency to help hold down the work. So as I cut the bevel on the end grain here, I'll just slide it through here, and this will hold my work down. Under bevel here, and this is more flat surface than I wanted. I wanted to make the first cut light, just to see how it looks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the guide bearing off of the cutter, which is what held the cutter so far away from the wood, and that way I'll be able to get up here so I have maybe about a 1/4 inch or so of flat surface, and the undercut will be a little wider. Now I've sanded the bottom of the top using the Festool Rotex sander, made quick work of it. And now I want to do my signature bevel bottom, where I carve a little bit into this under bevel and give it a little bit of texture. So I've got a couple of carving gouges here. I've got a number 7 6mm and a number 9 7mm, so I can decide which sweep I like the best. And I'm just going to go ahead and carve some little bit of texture there. I'll start with the number 9, see how that looks. And I'll just continue around the entire piece this way.